Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive story about Bangladesh, the country that, let's be real, probably manufactured the shirt you're wearing right now. Over the last few decades, Bangladesh has been one of the world's most incredible development success stories, completely transforming itself into an absolute powerhouse of global manufacturing. But right now, the country is facing a critical window of time. They are at an unprecedented crossroads that will absolutely decide their future.
Let's kick things off with a number that's frankly a little terrifying for the global supply chain. 12%. Imagine running a business where your profit margins are already razor thin, and suddenly, out of nowhere, your biggest customers are handed a massive 12% tax just to buy from you. Well, that is exactly the looming tariff shocks threatening the absolute engine of Bangladesh's economy today.
So you can see why the country is currently facing a true make-or-break decade. It's an incredibly precarious balancing act. You've got these massive economic victories on one side, but on the other, they're juggling sudden technological disruptions and literal existential environmental threats. The very foundation of their explosive growth is shifting right beneath their feet.
To make sense of all this, we're going to explore what's known as the triple transition. First, the LDC graduation shock. Second, the technological transition. And third, the climate transition.
All right, let's jump into part one. The LDC graduation shock, a bittersweet economic victory.
The crazy thing about this impending economic shock? It's actually the result of a massive, undeniable national win. Thanks to decades of duty-free access, their ready-made garment exports just exploded. We are talking $23 billion in the European Union and another $5 billion in the UK. This growth was largely fueled by a European initiative that allowed least developed countries to export goods with a 0% tariff. It was a perfect runway for Bangladesh to become a dominant global supplier.
But here comes that bittersweet twist I mentioned. In 2026, Bangladesh officially graduates from least developed country status. Now, on paper, socially and economically, that's huge. It's a phenomenal milestone showing real national progress. But in the ruthless world of international trade, it means they lose that sweet 0% preferential tariff in the EU. Boom, an instant 12% jump in costs for their European buyers.
And that 12% jump? It triggers a frankly deadly economic combo. See, because Bangladesh mostly produces basic, low-value garments, European buyers are incredibly price-sensitive. If prices go up even a little, they'll easily just jump ship to another country. Meanwhile, these massive factory supply chains operate on razor-thin markups, usually under 4%. I mean, it's a miracle anyone makes a profit on a t-shirt at that rate, right? So they absolutely cannot afford to just swallow that 12% tariff cost themselves. It is the ultimate squeeze. How do you survive when you can't raise your prices, but your margins are completely vanishing?
Which brings us to part two, the technological transition, automation and infrastructure.
So, to survive this impending tariff hit and stay relevant globally, the country's manufacturing sector is overhauling itself fast. Factories are automating at breakneck speed. But the cost? A staggering 31% decline in the garment labor force, as machines literally replace human hands. It's a harsh reality of modernizing a labor-heavy industry. When you are fighting for pennies on a piece of clothing, deploying tech that works faster, reduces errors, and slashes wage costs becomes a matter of basic survival for factory owners.
We really have to look past the data here, though, because these lost jobs predominantly belong to women and lower-skilled helpers. These are everyday people who often lack the advanced literacy or training to just easily pivot to a new career. It creates an absolutely urgent need for what's called a just transition. Basically, a framework to retrain and protect vulnerable workers so this push for economic efficiency doesn't leave millions destitute.
But hey, it's not all job losses. On the flip side, technology is modernizing the nation in ways that will massively benefit the overall economy. A perfect example is the new $1.5 billion Chittagong Port Bay terminal set to open by 2030. Right now, smaller ships literally have to sit around and wait for specific tides just to dock. But this new terminal, it's going to handle massive 280-meter ships, absolute behemoths of the sea. It slashes wait times and doubles cargo capacity to 6 million TEUs a year. This is exactly the kind of state-of-the-art upgrade Bangladesh needs to keep its exports fiercely competitive even after those new tariffs hit.
Now, let's move into our third and final pillar, the climate transition, fighting for survival.
Because, let's be real, upgrading ports and automating factories doesn't mean much if the ground they're built on succumbs to rising seas. Bangladesh is on the absolute front lines of global climate change, and all these clocks are ticking at the exact same time.
Navigating the 2026 tariff shock and opening the 2030 port has to happen while they race toward a massive 2041 goal of hitting 40% renewable electricity. Right now, the country relies heavily on imported fossil fuels, which is just bleeding their economy dry. So, transitioning to wind and solar, it isn't just about saving the planet, it is about energy independence and fundamental economic survival.
But getting to that ambitious green future requires cash. A lot of it. There is a glaring gap between the $333 million they invested in clean energy back in 2023 and the $1.7 billion they actually need every single year to hit that 2041 target. The capital required is just staggering, and right now, they are falling way short.
To make matters worse, the domestic climate funds they do have are heavily skewed. Over 50% of the Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund gets poured into physical infrastructure, things like roads and embankments, but less than 1% is spent on agricultural adaptation. That leaves farmers incredibly exposed to slow-moving, devastating disasters like topsoil degradation and rising coastal salinity, which, by the way, is already wreaking havoc on over half the country's coastal areas.
So what's the game plan? Surviving this triple transition really comes down to the immediate execution of 3 interconnected steps. Step 1, elevating their exports away from basic t-shirts to high-value goods that can actually absorb those tariff hikes. Step 2, unlocking serious international green capital to fund the renewable shift. And Step 3, aggressively retraining their workforce so the actual humans powering this economy aren't left behind by automation.
Which leaves us with a huge, lingering question about the real fragility of economic development and global supply chains. Can Bangladesh successfully navigate this crossroads and survive the ultimate price of progress? They have completely defied the odds over the last 50 years, but these next 10, they are going to put that resilience to the ultimate test. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.